Good morning, Grace Church. Miss you guys terribly. Wish we could be together today. It's a wonderful day. It's Resurrection Sunday. And if it wasn't for this day all those years ago, we would not be together anyway. So I'm so grateful for today. I'm so grateful for the sacrifice that Jesus made. It has really set us all up for so much success and so much intimacy with the Father and so much relationship and just miracles. So I'm super excited. I'm super grateful in my own life and then for the lives of everyone that's been touched by Jesus. So wanted to share on this particular topic. I've been given John chapter 20, 1 through 18. But before I get into that, I want to kind of set the stage a little bit. I think sometimes when we read the word, it can be very easy to read through it or take a chunk of it and just look at it as a story. And sometimes it's hard to plant yourself into the story so that you can really experience what these characters, what these people, what our ancestors have gone through. So I want to set the stage a little bit for this passage before we get into it. So it's Passover season, which is a celebration of God delivering the Israelites from Egypt and doing it in a fantastic way and keeping them from the angel of death. Equipping them with gold and silver and jewelry and all sorts of things before he was going to usher them into the promised land. So this was a remembrance celebration. There were people from all over the region that were coming in. Melissa mentioned that there were Greeks and there were folks that were Jewish and there were people that weren't Jewish. There were Romans, and it's just a huge party to be had that was happening at this time. The disciples and the followers of Jesus were going about their day-to-day activities, doing what it was that they did on a regular basis. They sit down for the Passover meal, and Jesus gives them some information that they don't really quite understand, but they don't get it. And within moments, their lives are turned upside down. There was very public trials. There was a controversial verdict that was established of guilt. There then was a gruesome procession that Jesus had to go through in the streets, where he was beaten, where he was wounded, where he was spit on, where he was abused. And then there was and the person that the disciples loved, that many people loved, was publicly crucified for crimes that he did not commit. Now, I want to take you into nowadays. We have the internet. We can watch crimes, trials on television, and think about how wrapped up we get in things that are happening in our community that don't necessarily touch us, but we are connected to. And imagine, when a guilty verdict or a not guilty verdict is rendered, and we feel strongly about the guilt or innocence of a person, how that impacts us. So I just want you to be thinking about what it would be like to be a follower of Jesus at this time. Once Jesus was crucified, the person that you love is gone. And the disciples are now fearful. They're running for their lives. They're hiding. They're denying that they were ever a disciple because fear sets in, and fear causes you to do very strange things when it is so overwhelming. And so now we're 3 days later, on early Sunday morning, or whatever day that was. It probably was Saturday on the Jewish calendar, but that's setting the stage for what it's like when I read this passage to you. So reading in John chapter 20, verse 1 through 18, I am reading in the New King James Version. Now, the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb early, while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. Then she ran and came to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken away the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they've laid him." Peter therefore went out, and the other disciple, and were going to the tomb. So they both ran together, and the other disciple outran Peter and came to the tomb first. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying there, yet he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb, and he saw the linen clothes lying there, and the handkerchief that had been around his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but folded together in a place by itself. Then the other disciple, who came to the tomb first, went in also, and he saw and believed. Then, for as yet they did not know the scripture, that he might rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went away again into their own homes. But Mary stood outside by the tomb weeping, and she wept as she stooped down and looked into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white, sitting, one at the head and the other at the feet where the body of Jesus had lain. Then they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "Because they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they've laid him." Now when she said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking?" She, supposing him to be a gardener, said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him, "Rabboni," which is to say, teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples she had seen the Lord, and that he had spoken these things to her. So in reading this, what really occurred to me, and sort of the message the Lord wants to share, is that things are not always what they seem. I mentioned before that people are grieving, the people that love the Lord, that walked with him, that talked with him for 3 years prior to this moment, or even less than 3 years, had an intimate relationship with him, and he died in front of them, a very public, gruesome, tragic death. And so when you lose someone that you're close to, grief is hard. Grief can take you to dark places. Fear at this time, they're scared that if they could kill Jesus, they could kill me. Or it could be disbelief. I now look like a fool because the person that I said was the Son of God is dead. And now people are looking at me like I didn't know what I was talking about. So there's all these things going on in people's minds. But in our grief, we tend to assume things, or we misinterpret or misunderstand what is right in front of us. And so when Mary got to the tomb, she didn't even go inside. She just got to the tomb and saw that the stone was rolled away, and she immediately assumed that his body was stolen, which was not the case. But she didn't know that. So she runs to go and tell the guys that he'd been stolen. And so they come running. I mean, John, the other disciple, outran Peter, so he was booking it to get to the tomb. And in our grief, something else that also happens is that we can overlook the obvious because of our mental state. When Peter and John, the other disciple, get there, they look into the tomb. Peter doesn't go in, but he just stands at the door and looks. And he sees that the linens were lying down. But the other disciple goes in, and he sees a couple of key things. He sees that the linen clothes are lying there, and that the handkerchief was not lying with the linen clothes, but folded together and placed by itself. So logic, which does not prevail when you're grieving, would say if someone was going to steal a body, why would they take the time to fold the linen? That they just wouldn't have time to do that. They would just go and take them away, and there would be chaos in the room. There would be, things strewn around. It wouldn't be neat and put together. Another thing, so they overlooked that. They didn't see it, even though they saw it. Also, Mary actually saw Jesus and didn't see him. She saw him. She had a conversation with him. She spoke to him. She was looking at him, and she saw something that that wasn't there. And so what that means to me is that there's a veil that covers us, that covers our eyes when we're in grief and we're in fear, and we can't see the forest for the trees, for that lack of a better terminology. And so I bring this up to say is that we're in a time of grief right now. You know, we've got COVID-19, there's rampant fear and anxiety that's plaguing the world. And when fear and grief, because we're losing jobs, we're losing resources, we're losing the opportunity to leave our house and congregate with our friends and neighbors and loved ones. So we've got a lot of things going on. And there's a veil that's over our eyes that we can't see what's really happening. And so what I would encourage you all to do in this season in particular, and I do believe you know, God is so good. He's got these deep plans that he is working things out on our behalf behind the scenes. And so it is very purposeful and very intentional that we are going through this season at this spiritual season. This is Passover, this is resurrection time, and the Lord just wants to share with us that it's resurrection time. And so ask the Lord to remove the veil that maybe this season has put over your eyes so that you can't see what the Lord is doing and where he really is. This passage is so good because it really shows us that what things look like isn't always what they are. And sometimes things that happen that cause grief, like loss, whether it's loss of a loved one, loss of a business, loss of a relationship, loss of connection, that there is a resurrection. Those things can take on new life. They might look a little different, but they can be so good and for us. And Jesus' resurrection was a gift not only to the disciples and the people of that time, but his death, but also his new life is a gift to us. And so just encourage you to take a look at the losses in your life and ask the Lord to show you how those things have been resurrected and how he wants to renew things in your life, how he wants to renew ideas and give it new life and breathe on it again. And I think that that's really where we need to be focusing. So happy to share on this Resurrection Sunday. I'm so excited to see how we're going to rise up in this season, how we're going to see new life breathed on things, how our nation and how the nations will receive new life in this season. So blessings to you all. Thank you for listening and happy Resurrection Sunday. Bye-bye.